we get to finally see what happens in God Valley. And it turns out one of the major things that triggers this event is the kidnapping of Shakky. Now, we know how big of a deal Shakky is to the world. That is the world's treasure. Her being kidnapped has everyone in the world of One Piece shook. Even Rayleigh, who's been acting nonchalant for the past couple chapters, is like, oh, nah. Y'all can't do that. In the chapter, it states that her kidnapping ended up causing the world's economy to pause. I don't even think anything in present day One Piece has come close to the impact that Shakky has had on the whole entire world. And after we find this out, we cut to 1 year later of Garland looking at his children Shanks and Shamrock for the first time. This whole moment in the chapter solidified in my head that the God Knights and the rest of the Celestial Dragons are irredeemable. Let me paint the picture for you. This dude comes down to meet his twins that were just born, right? To meet the mother of his children. And he's like, oh, look at them. They're so adorable. They're so cute. And then while he is saying this with a smile on his face, he goes to the mother of his children and is like, yo, I would love to stay here, but I just told the government to get rid of your island. And on top of that, he tells her, oh yeah, I'm getting a new wife too. And he proceeds to kill her with no remorse. I do not care how sad the Celestial Dragon's backstory is. They gotta go. I need Dragon to drag them down tomorrow. And speaking of Dragon, like I said, Garland already called the Navy to the island. He pre-called them before he even got here. And Dragon is one of those Navy officers who have been assigned to go to God Valley. And of course, we know Dragon's nature. He grew up to be the leader of the Revolutionary Army. He's going around asking, why are we attacking these innocent people? Why do they have to be brought in and captured for seemingly no reason at all? But of course, he gets shut down because at this point, it seems like Dragon is like at the very bottom of the Navy. He has no power or respect, unlike some people who do, who we'll get to later on in the chapter, best believe. But yeah, we already knew Dragon was in the Navy at some point, and he told us that he found no justice there. So for God Valley to be the event that might trigger him to be like, oh nah, I'm on the wrong side of history, that makes perfect sense. I feel like this is his Aokiji moment. Like, this is the thing that made him snap off of the Navy. And if you look at it big picture, the government basically set themselves up to be pulled down. Because on top of Dragon on the island, you have Kuma, Ivankov, Jenny, all on a slave ship going to God Valley. And we see what happens to them in the Kuma flashback, but I say this all to say that the pillars of the Revolutionary Army were founded in God Valley. The Revolutionary Army wouldn't be a thing if God Valley didn't happen. In a twisted way, the government's cruelty ended up forming its biggest antagonist. And speaking of Ivankov, it's cool to see them giving sort of the same speech that they were giving Mr. 2 and Impel Down when Luffy was about to die. And Ivankov's like, miracles do not happen for people who don't work for them. You have to be willing to fight for miracles to happen. And one thing I'm somewhat curious about is, how does Ivankov have this mindset at such a young age? How did Ivankov and Jenny even become slaves in the first place? We never got that in the Kuma flashback, so maybe we'll get it one day. I'm genuinely interested on how they got to that point on the slave ship. Also, if you made it this far in the video, feel free to leave a like and subscribe. I appreciate the support and I appreciate you. And speaking of things I'm interested in, we cut to Morgans. And I don't know if y'all can tell, but Morgans is one of my favorite characters in One Piece. His impact is felt throughout the whole entire world. And seemingly even at this young age, he is the head of the World Economic Journal, and he is trying to bribe the government, being like, I won't tell Pirate Island what y'all are doing on God Valley if y'all give me some money. And to be that bold at a seemingly early age, I can't tell what age he is because he's still hiding behind his devil fruit, which makes him even more interesting. We still don't know what he looks like. I thought we were going to get that. This whole time I thought we were going to get what he looks like, at least in God Valley, but no, he's still a bird. But yeah, it seems like the government doesn't take his offer, and he ends up giving all the information to Pirate Island. So you already know it's up from there. Once Pirate Island found out that Shakky was being taken and what was going on God Valley, everyone's ready to go, with Rox and his pirates ready to go to God Valley. We also get to see Roger and Garp preparing to leave, and I'm gonna keep it a buck. We gotta talk about Garp. This flashback has not been doing his character justice per se. Why in the world does Garp hear, oh, the Celestial Dragons have taken over an island, kidnapped its people, brought slaves, and now is gonna have a human hunting competition, and the only thing he cares about is the fact that Roger is gonna be there? Like, come on. Like, at least Roger and his pirates, they're going to get Shakky back. They're doing it out of care for somebody. But Garp is just going because Roger is going. And granted, we know that this event happens every 3 years. So Garp has to know about it, right? He has to. Now, I say all this to say, I'm not calling Garp a bad guy or a villain. You know, he's still cool, but without a doubt, based off of this chapter, he is the most selfish person in One Piece, at least at his young age. Maybe the rest of this flashback will get me to change my mind on him, but as of right now, no, he needs to do better. His own son is doing more than him already. As a little grunt in the Navy, Dragon is doing more, and we see it by the end of the chapter. Dragon is doing more for the people than Garp is. I have yet to see Garp save anybody. Am I crazy? Right. And cutting back to Rocks, on the way to God Valley, he is stopped by Harold. And Harold starts off with threatening to destroy his ship. And I have to ask you, Harold, do you not see Big Mom, Whitebeard, and Kaido standing right behind Rocks? You lose. Without a doubt, you lose. And looking at the panel, not a single one of them seems stressed out about the situation. Because what is Harold gonna do? 1v4? And luckily for Harold, Rocks just wanted to have a conversation. And Rocks must truly consider Harold to be his friend because he ends up telling him a whole bunch of stuff that he never even told his crew. For one, we find out that Rocks' real name is Davy D. Xebec, and he is an ancestor of Davy Jones. And apparently there's a whole entire Davy clan. And now you may be asking, what happened to the Davy clan? It seems like they are in God Valley. Because Rocks is telling Harold, oh yeah, I had a wife and the child being Blackbeard, he wanted to get them away from the danger, considering that Rocks is probably the most wanted man in the world. And he chose to send them to God Valley, which he considers to be his homeland. Y'all remember last chapter when Garling was telling the Gorosei that Emu would be really happy about what he found on the island. And on top of that, the island has a weird culture. So this brings everything full circle to why Emu would be so happy, because Davy Jones was apparently an enemy of the government, and his whole entire clan is an enemy of the government. So they get to have their human hunting contest on God Valley while getting rid of one of their biggest enemies that have been in hiding for a long time. So I bet Emu was grinning ear to ear when he found out about it. But on top of everything that we learned, I'm glad that we get this motivation for Rocks. Because at first I thought he was in the same boat with everyone else in the world, that he just wanted to go to God Valley to rescue Shakky. But that's not the case at all. He could care less about that. The only thing that is on his mind is protecting his wife and child and make sure that he is okay. Anything outside of that, he could care less about. And that's something that I can respect. Unlike Garp, who is just going to God Valley because he wants to fight Roger. I promise I'm not hating on Garp, but come on. Have we seen him do anything yet outside of fighting Roger? Do we know anything that he has done outside of God Valley? I might start hating on the dude in about 3 more chapters. And if I don't see him help a child or get a cat out of a tree in the next 3 chapters, I'm gonna keep hating. And on the last page of this chapter, we cut to God Valley, and it seems like everything is starting because they're showing off Shakky as the grand prize, the whole entire event. And like I was saying in the beginning of the video, the God Knights and the Celestial Dragons, they gotta go. Because why are they showing off Shakky? And everyone's like, oh, I want her as my wife. I can't wait to get her, blah, blah, blah. You cut to Summers, the God Knight Summers, and he's grinning ear to ear talking about, y'all want her as a wife? She's gonna be my slave. Do you know how crazy that is in the grand scheme of the One Piece world? Everyone loves Shakky so much that they wouldn't dare hurt her. But you have someone like Summers being like, no, I'm looking at a slave right now. That's psychotic on so many different levels. Somehow with me seeing the God Knights, I can appreciate Dragon and what he's doing even more. And speaking of Dragon, we cut to the most mind-boggling part of the chapter because Dragon walks into a house and sees a woman begging for her child to leave the island. And it turns out that that child is a young Blackbeard. So Dragon ends up running into Rocks' family, and if he ends up taking Blackbeard, that makes perfect sense to why Whitebeard didn't know who Blackbeard was when he adopted him on his crew. Because for one, Rocks never told Whitebeard or anyone else in the Rocks crew that he had a family. And 2, Rocks never got to reunite with Blackbeard. It seems like Dragon just scoops up Blackbeard and takes him to a different island. And when Rocks comes to God Valley, it may be a thing of like he doesn't get to see his family and he thinks they're dead. And that could contribute to why the Rocks pirates end up falling. Because like Dragon says when he talks to Kuma, a child is a parent's weak spot. We haven't seen Rocks in that mental headspace of actually losing anything that he loves and cares about. So yeah, anything can happen. And on top of all of this, I love getting more insight on Blackbeard because like I've been saying, he is one of the most interesting characters in all of One Piece, especially when it comes to his motives. So us finding out that he was there for God Valley, he got to witness the darkest part of humanity. And on top of that, it seems like his mother has taught him about the Davy clan and why he is special in the first place. So this adds on to his whole entire motivation and all the things that we've seen him do. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the chapter. Like I said last video, if we were to get Blackbeard lore in this flashback, this wouldn't be the best flashback. And since we have gotten Blackbeard lore, this is officially the best flashback in my opinion. And I love the Kuma flashback, but this one right here, the amount of weight that it holds for the whole entire One Piece world, and the fact that we've been waiting for things like God Valley, Rocks Xebec, Shanks lore, Blackbeard lore, Dragon lore, all like I could go on and on. This has been the most enjoyable experience for me reading One Piece weekly, and I love One Piece. You understand? So what do y'all think about the chapter? Let me know in the comments down below, and I appreciate y'all watching the video. Bye.